All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today in Chicago. And thank you to those who are live on our streaming webinar. It's a muggy little day in Chicago, but it makes me feel at home because I'm from Dallas. I'm Ben Pierce. I'm the Global AVP of Adaptive Planning at Workday. And I have the honor today of hosting this little fireside chat without a fire. I'd like to welcome Tom Kirkham, the CIO from Primient, and Anastas Harizanov, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis. Tom, will you please introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about Primient?
Sure, yeah. Tom Kirkham, I'm the CIO at Primient. Been there for about 3.5 years. Primient is a plant-based manufacturer of food and industrial starch ingredients, products shipping to Coca-Cola and Pepsi and lots of industrial starch customers as well. So began our digital transformation journey there about 18 months ago, and ongoing and still going and going strong. So good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Anastas, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ben. First off, thank you for having us here. Looking forward to the conversation today. I'm the Anastas Harizanov, and I'm the FP&A Director at Primient. I've been with the company a little north of 2 years now, and for the past year and a few months, I've been in charge of the EPM implementation for the company. Prior to that, I spent about 10 years with Honeywell in different finance capacities within their oil and gas division. Extremely passionate about data-driven decisions and helping organizations grow sustainably. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. And on a more personal note, somebody sitting here or at home wondering where this wonderful accent is from, I am originally from Bulgaria, moved here in 2001.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for joining us. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about data today because data is at the heart of any organization's strategy, but certainly at the heart of a lot of transformation. So I don't want to steal your thunder here, Tom, but maybe talk to us a little bit about how this transformation started, this transformation that you recently completed.
Yep, absolutely. So the Primient operating model, if you will, is 100% data-based. When we began this journey, everything was in spreadsheets. It was all disjointed. It was on shared drives. It was all over the place. A, impossible to secure, and B, impossible to be consistent and makes more real-time database decisions. So as we began the journey, we started looking at data platforms to get ourselves towards that one version of the truth. Looked at many providers and came upon Incorta, and it was really a quick win. And then the second piece of that, as we began the finance transformation, we looked across several platforms. Anastas will talk more about this as well, but and ended up with Workday Adaptive Planning and FINS. So great start to the journey.
Okay, so where on the transformation did you decide the access we have to data is not going to work? We need to look outside of where we're at today.
Day one, quite literally. It was taking weeks to do plans and forecasts, and the whole Primient operating model is based on forecast accuracy, based on consistency, and we were just completely unable to attain any of that with the tools that we had at our disposal at the time. So post-separation, about a year after we were completely separated, this very quickly became our biggest priority. We put the roadmap together collectively as a business, shared it with our senior leadership team, got approval for the first 2-ish years of this digital transformation, and off we went.
Okay, so how did you stumble upon Incorta? Because I stumbled upon them 3 years ago, and I found a company using Incorta and Adaptive together, and then quickly we signed Incorta as a customer. We started a partnership, and I'm excited to be here sitting with you, talking to you about your success with Incorta and Workday. But how did you find them?
Yeah, so Incorta, our private equity owner, KPS Partners, brought Incorta to us. I had honestly never heard of them. We were looking at a few other platforms at the time, so brought them kind of into the fold and did a quick demo and a quick proof of concept. And the reality was, within weeks on some of the other platforms, we had nothing. And 4 days in, I had my entire SAP test environment in Incorta. From a proof of concept perspective, it was a the easiest selection I've ever done from that perspective, because it was just such a quick win. So great at the speed to value. It was amazing. So
that's incredible. Speaking of selections, Anastasia, concurrently here, you were looking at solutions in the EPM planning space. Tell us a little bit about how you approach that selection process.
Well, so from a finance standpoint, just to say it, at Primient, it's been a priority for us since day one to get away from this manual Excel data gathering world we've been living in, reaching into multiple systems, cleansing data, putting it all together, and trying to turn finance into a more trusted partner to drive decision making. So from our day-to-day activities, even something as simple as putting reports together, right? We've been trying to automate as much as possible. So we've been looking at a lot of different solutions, whether it's something as simple as Power BI to help us at least visualize our data in the back end. We can actually clean up some of the data through an automated process, right? Try to speed up every aspect of our daily lives. But ultimately, just taking a step back, we even tried to make improvements on our internal homegrown system, which was Prime, just so we could get better and better until we reached that point that to evaluate the EPM solutions, that's going to essentially take us that step further into our digital transformation. So we looked at a few different companies. I want to say HFM, Plan for a few of them. But then it was ultimately decided that Incorta and Adaptive would be critical for us, and they're going to help us achieve our strategy, help us streamline our workflows, reduce some of the redundancies we're seeing, and ultimately, at least from a finance standpoint, help us get to that next level and be a more trusted partner.
And this is a little bit off script, but
sure.
Did the partnership with Workday and Incorta play into this at all in terms of the decision making?
Yeah, I think, if I look back on that journey, right, as we were going through the finance selection, we had already picked Incorta. And again, looking at several other providers on the finance side, getting close to the end of that, Workday was probably in the lead anyway. However, the announcement of the partnership came at the perfect time, and it was kind of a stars aligned thing for us. And we had a partner at the time that was also helping us that also knew Workday and Incorta. So we had a lot of stars aligned to make this journey a lot easier and a lot faster to kick off, if you will.
Yeah. Well, a special shout out to Joe Cooper. He's probably watching for the partnership on the alliances thing and getting that statement out there at Absolutely. The time that we did. Took us a little while. So shout out to my partnership team too. Okay, so what problems from a data access were you really trying to solve here? What were the biggest challenges, I guess, with the data, and then what were you really trying to solve?
Yeah, so I mean, it was really to get to that panacea of one version of the truth, because we were going all over the place for data. Anastasia mentioned Prime. Prime is basically a mountain of BW reports and SAP that were custom built for Tate & Lyle that we separated from. So not at all purpose built for us. We don't have anybody that really knew it either. So we didn't have the skills to change it. It was a giant mess in a lot of ways. And so unwinding that and getting it to a platform where we can access the data in any way that we want, whether it's through an Excel add-in, through Power BI, through the built-in Incorta dashboards, really was what our problem was. Which data to go after and how do you get that data? That's what we were trying to solve from an IT perspective, a little bit more from Anastasia, maybe on the business side.
From a finance perspective, we needed the granularity, right? We have a pretty manual process that we have to run, and we can get down to a product level visibility, and we can speak pretty intelligently about our financials. But when it comes down to our plans, that was nowhere to be found, right? So we were looking, again, to get away from this manual world to something that's going to be more structured and give us the granularity we need to actually drive the right business decisions. Get away, right? And a couple of things kind of come to mind, but even the agility of us to react to certain market conditions was hindered, right? And now with the system, we're actually able to flow certain assumptions with a snap of a finger, right? And now we can see everything through our P&L where before it could take us a week or two to put something together as well. Getting away from this manual process of handing Excel files left and right now. Another example comes to mind is for once we close our books, we have this process for topside adjustments in case we need to make some adjustments and SAP is closed. The business people need to reach out to accounting. Accounting needs to book the entry. Accounting then needs to reach to somebody else in Poland to book an entry. Very burdensome manual process. And now business tells accounting, book the entry is booked. We see it on our end.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that one. So if I could recap, scenario analysis and access to a deeper level of data, right? It gives you the ability to answer questions fast and then also predict what's going to mean going forward.
Absolutely.
That's why I partnered with Incorta. That's why I love Incorta. So talk to me a little bit about integrating the two. What was that like? How did you think about doing that and going about it?
Yeah, so the partnership announcement came right a day before. So we were pretty leading edge, and tackling that was certainly one of our bigger challenges from a Fins perspective, for sure, because we pretty much had to build all of those data structures into Incorta and all of those business schemas into Incorta. And it was challenging. It was challenging because we didn't know our own data. Mm-hmm. And so where to go get that data from wasn't as easy as I go ask Anastas, and we had to go dig for it. So that was really probably our biggest challenge was creating the foundation of all of this in Incorta, leveraging the Workday model, of course, right? So that really is where we took a lot of time. And it was because our data was a mess. It was because we didn't know where things were. We didn't know how to get them. We didn't know which one to get, which field to pull. So lots of challenges there.
So Anastas, anything to add to that in terms of the integration?
Absolutely. I will definitely echo that, right? We spent a lot of time cleansing the data. We quickly realized how complex it was, something we kind of underestimated on our end. Millions of transactions, layered logic, if you will, or actually in our case, sometimes the lack thereof, right? So we spend a lot of time within Incorta layering the logic so we can actually trace certain transactions and get to that granularity level that we were looking for. From an adaptive perspective, I would say that maybe change management is something that we should never underestimate. People sometimes tend to be set in their ways, and whenever you're introducing something new, sometimes they could be resistant to it. We had a very good team in place. We have a great change management in Primient, and she helped us put trainings. We had to kind of visit some of our sites, try to explain the benefit of both tools that we're bringing to the table and why we have to change their manual process into something more structured that's going to make all of our lives easier and ultimately drive better decisions.
Can you tell me a little bit more about like what levels of detail that you plan at and that you analyze at, and like how this enables that?
It's an awesome question. Actually, on the planning side, that's one of the big changes we actually are making right now. Prior, we used to run rate a lot of our forecasts. Now we're actually going down to the cost center level, and we're having the cost center managers own their forecasts, right? So everybody's going to have skin in the game. So that's a big change for us, and that's where kind of change management comes into play here, because it's a big effort trying to get everybody on board. And a lot of people think it's going to mean a lot more work for them, but once you kind of see it, it really doesn't, right? So that's the granularity we're going down to, and then we're essentially going to look at our variances at those levels.
How much more work is it? Because I always get the question of like, well, nobody likes the budget, right? Like that's not fun. So like the analysis part may be a little bit more fun, and using the data to figure out what you need to do, fun. But actually the budgeting process, like I don't know that everybody loves the budgeting process. I certainly don't love my own personal budgeting process.
I'll tell you, even sometimes finance doesn't like it, right? It's but it's a necessary evil. Honestly, I don't think it's that much work based on everything we've implemented. Now, the footprint expands because a lot more people are going to be, impacted with what we need to do. But from a work perspective, it really doesn't mean that much more work for cost center.
I'll chime in here for a minute because, I'm a user.
Yeah, you own a budget, right?
Of
Probably a
this.
pretty big budget.
Big budget, yeah, and I have more visibility right now than I've ever had, and going through the process itself was 10 times simpler than it had been in the past. And this was the first year we did a full zero-based, so it was painful. Don't get me wrong. And do we have a lot of misses? We do. It's the first year we've done it. But as a user, it's fantastic. I mean, we did a lot of training sessions, a lot of workshop type training sessions or lunch and learn type training sessions. So that piece of it's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe talk about that a little bit too, because I've seen the rollout of these things, it's hit or miss, any new technology, right? Like, as a CIO, this is a little bit off script too, but as a CIO, like, how do you drive user adoption on some of these things?
I mean, a lot of it goes to having those workshops, having the being accessible, if you will, right? As a project team. And a lot of that starts with evangelizing the why and what the benefit is for the user base. Nobody likes change, right? Well, I might, because it's my job to drive it. But if you explain the whys, the hows come a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And that I think we did a really good job of early on in announcing the whole digital transformation roadmap to everybody, what the benefits were, and they're all measurable. We're measuring to them today. So great stuff there.
And you mentioned manual work at the start of this. How has that changed? Do you still have a lot of manual work happening, or have you been able to reduce that and drive some efficiencies?
So if I might add something to the previous question, and then I'll go to that one as well. The one thing we actually did at Primient was we had call it a staged rollout. So we went live with our FG&A forecasting first, which I think helped us tremendously, right? We were actually able to stay ahead of the game in a way that we realized some of the shortfalls we might have and things that we might have missed in our, build of the system. So we were actually ready as we were progressing through it to tackle those, call it issues in advance in some of the other areas as well. But also we had a fantastic SOT SG&A review during our AOP. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped us tremendously because now we have our leadership team, not that they weren't standing behind us, but now they've actually done it and they can speak about what they've done and the value that it brings to all of Primient.
Okay, so far we've talked about what you set out to do, how you went through picking your partners and how you're going to do it, going through the implementation, rolling it out, trying to drive adoption. Let's talk a little bit about outcomes. What kind of outcomes are you seeing from a business perspective today now that you've kind of gotten to this point? Tom, start with you.
Sure. So from an IT perspective, the access to the data, the ability to integrate that data with other systems, the ability to build automated processes is so much simpler because it's all in one place. The data is super clean because we put the right data into the system. So on the IT side, our benefit is support, and we get to be infinitely more agile than we could have before. So kind of the benefits that we're seeing on the IT side.
And the granularity is tremendous,
yep.
Right? The good thing about Incorta is we have SAP level details down to the transaction level pretty much sitting in Incorta. So you no longer have to go learn SAP, think about what T codes or what table am I going to have to look at. You can just go into Incorta and pull that level of detail. The other thing is you can decide how much of that detail you can actually pass on to adaptive, right? So we can streamline our processes, be much more proficient in what we do, right? So from that standpoint, I think we've gained quite a bit. The transparency of the data, we've had issues where one group says, hey, I'm using number X for my forecast, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, the revenue side is like, well, no, we used Y, right? Now we actually have the same set of data that everybody's referencing. The revenue team reaches into Incorta, pulls all their demand volumes. That's where everything starts from our forecasting perspective. And then we layer on top some other assumptions that are sitting within the tools, and then our forecast gets populated. Oversimplifying a little, obviously, but all of those assumptions also sit within the system, and we can just layer them in on top. Then the commercial team, right, can pass that information over to our commodities team, but everybody's using the same assumptions. There is no longer a disconnect between the two. And just the speed of how things are being calculated. We calculate with every AOP process, we calculate our standard costing. And that's a pretty burdensome process that takes us about, in the old manual world, about a couple weeks to complete, from inputting all the, the assumptions, flowing it through Excel spreadsheets, producing rates by plan, blending the rates, and with every manual process, obviously, that's, prone to inconsistencies. But we were actually able to test it out during our AOP, where we already had our rates. We put everything in the system, and I actually got a call from our operations manager. It's like, hey, we unintentionally sandbagged a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, we overestimated one of the SKUs costs, right? Ultimately, we uncovered some other ones that offset that favorability we found, but it just goes to show that, the accuracy of the system, right? Everything's sitting in there. It's a basic calculation that the system does. And it's fantastic.
That is super cool. Thank you for sharing that. So I love finance, so I'm very, I guess, partial to Anastas and his team. But what other corporate gains or what other areas of functions has Incorta helped you with? Because it's not just for finance, right?
Oh, absolutely not. I think it's helped on the planning side across the board. I mean, if you look at our cost accountants are in there now, and they have a level of visibility that they've never had, or they thought they had, but they weren't taking it from the right place. And now it's super consistent. They're using it. The plant managers are in there all the time. So it's really, it's organization wide, because like I said before, forecasting is truly core to our operating model. And this is giving everybody the visibility that they need to get way, way better at. So great stuff across the board.
That's awesome. And have you been able to sunset any systems or see any gains from that? Every time we talk about a technology project, and it's funny because especially with planning projects, we run into CFOs or CEOs that are like, hey, what are my hard costs here? I don't care about the fluffy stuff. Give me my hard costs. I don't care about efficiencies. Sure. And I don't really care about you'll be able to drive more revenue or something, or reduce costs in the operations or something like that. Tell me just about hard costs. So have you seen any of those kind of synergies where you can actually say like, hey, we do have some hard cost savings somewhere or another in the business?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, and I'll talk about the IT side first, but we were able to sunset 2 pretty sizable contracts that almost balanced out the Workday subscription fees. And then coming in the future, right, we'll get to where we have one data platform. We currently have probably what I would call 3, and we'll get rid of 2 of those. And I think when it's all said and done, it'll be about $1 million a year from a true savings perspective, just on the IT side. So great savings.
I'm sure P firm loves that you're adding to EBITDA for them.
Yeah, yes, they do.
Yeah. So yeah, LP savings. Okay. We've almost gone this entire time and we haven't said the word AI. Can you believe that? That's pretty crazy.
It's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, it is, right? It is. But, given that, now that you have all this data in one place, right? And look, we're driving a ton of new AI features into Adaptive. I'm really excited about the partnership with Incorta because it gives us this huge access to data right underneath Adaptive that we never had, that we can provide new capabilities to FP&A. But how are you thinking about AI now that you have all your data in a single place? And, it's just like kind of the old adage of garbage in, garbage out, right? You've started to kind of clean this thing up. So hopefully we should be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be the longest I've gone in the last 2 years without saying the word AI. So it was kind of refreshing. But we just recently built out a draft of our true AI strategy. A lot of tools from Gartner, a lot of conversations with you guys, a lot of conversations with other partners. And the reality is it's in our everyday lives. The baby step was to roll out Copilot last year and finish that rollout in this year. As we look at this, our strategy is going to be to leverage partners' AI. We're never going to invest as much as Workday will in AI, for example. Getting the funding for that would be almost impossible because finding those value-based areas where there is return is hard. So we're going to take that approach of leverage partner-based tools, leverage what we own, leverage Microsoft-based tools, leverage the Copilot that's built into Incorta, We're looking at a couple other partners that are Incorta bolt-ons, and then leverage what Workday has as well. So that's really what our strategy. And then if we have to find something that we found true value in and go build it ourselves, we'll evaluate that on a as needed basis, per se.
From a finance standpoint, how are you thinking about AI?
And we're actually using AI in our forecasting model in one of our overtime sheets.
Yep.
So it was a surprise to me, but our implementations partner, kind of presented the solution to us, and it's pretty cool to see. So I'm excited we're using it, and I'm even more excited of what's to come with AI. Right,
Yeah.
It was very important for us to cleanse the data, and I think we've made tremendous progress. And now we can actually leverage all the innovations coming our way, and ultimately that's gonna also help up, free up more time again for our finance associates to be better business partners, right? To help drive the decision making, right? Give them more time instead of trying to figure out what the forecasts are. Be on the table and have those discussions backed up by data.
If you could invent any AI thing that would help you the most in finance, what would it be? Curious, because I want to take it back to my product team. Build this.
That's there's probably a bunch of them, right? But I would want something that is going to turn my forecast more from a reactive to actually a more prescriptive forecast, and be like, all right, we know where we want to get, we know what the forecast is, but give me the steps. Like, tell me, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Right. So, and that could be very broad, could be in a small area, could be in a big area. But if somebody can be like, all right, maybe think about those solutions, something we're not even thinking of, and actually lead us to have those conversations as well.
Yeah, we just I'll add to that a little bit. We just did a AI workshop with our senior leadership team, and one of the comments our CEO made was, we're going to leverage AI to be our analysts. We don't have data scientists on staff. We're private equity. We're super lean. We're never going to have a mountain of analysts sitting around waiting for something to analyze. And his comment, which has resonated a bunch with a lot of us, was AI is going to be our analysts. That's how we're going to use it. That's where we're going to get the value from it. So we're in the process of scheduling another workshop to take our KPIs that we all have, level zeros and level ones, right? Company-wide, function-wide, and then we'll get down to level fours and look at all those level ones as a leadership team and brainstorm where we can use AI to move those needles, because then it'll ratchet up and move our level zero boards. So pretty cool. And then assign a value to those, and then look at partners and see who has the tools. And if there are no tools, we'll go build it.
So obviously the goal, especially when you're a PE-backed company, is profitable growth, right?
Absolutely.
How do you see this helping you be able to scale, to grow, to kind of hit the goals that you're trying to achieve as a company going forward?
Yeah, so the accuracy and the forecasting side of this is really, I think, where that strength is, and the real-time nature of it. Having one source of the truth will all fuel those types of things. We're going through a 5-year plan exercise that has already been done on the growth side, so we can look at those models and see where we're targeting our growth and start forecasting those, I think. And phase X of our digital transformation will be, we're doing a supply chain planning project right now as well. And then as we can run scenarios in that plan, and then all of that data is in Incorta already, now we can instantly financialize a scenario in minutes instead of months. I mean, I'm not sure we've ever even been able to do that before. So you can now run supply chain scenarios, get the finance out of that very quickly, and it'll give you the ability to figure out which needles to move, right? I mean, we're at our heart a commodities-based business, and corn prices change every 30 seconds. So,
yeah. Okay. Closing question here, since we're getting, I think, close to time. No project's perfect. There's probably a lot of people I know in this room and out there listening, like, what would you have done differently? Do you have some advice for others that want to get to where you're at, and things you would, get some coaching or some advice or some takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the biggest lesson learned was spend more time up front and know your data. That's where we struggled. That was our biggest hurdle. No blame, no fault anywhere. We simply didn't know our own data. Had we spent 11 weeks in the beginning of this or 10 weeks in the beginning of this and really dug into our data and built out a true requirements document, we'd have been a lot better off.
Awful. How you echo that? Because like, again, biggest hurdle for us, do your homework. Yeah. Right. Know your data, know your current systems before you jump, knee deep into a project like this. Know where you're coming from, and maybe some of your current processes are not as bad, right? Maybe you can actually piggyback on that and build on it in the new system, right? But knowing the data, cleaning it up, knowing that you can trust it no matter which system you look at it, it's just going to be helpful with every stage of your EPM implementation. The other thing is be clear on the why. Like, why are you doing it? Not just because you're doing it because of a system or a data perspective, but what are the business outcomes that you're trying to achieve? Do you want to achieve a better forecast? Do you want to have better data transparency or so forth? Just doing an implementation or a transformation like this just for the sake of the transformation would never work. So be clear on the why. And lastly, I would say that don't underestimate change management. I'll come back to that. It's key for a successful implementation.
Yeah. I'll add an exclamation point to that one. That was huge. I think we did a good job of it. I think the other thing that I would say to this is at the front of this, we made a lot of assumptions that the consolidation side of this is going to be easy. Yeah, none of this is easy. Don't ever think it's easy because it's a nail in your coffin right out of the gate. Because then we underestimated the effort up front. We didn't do our due diligence. We ran. So I think having a real stage gate, whatever terminology you want to use, project methodology as a part of this, where you have those hard stops and those approvals you have your data under control, you have your requirements under control. We were new to this and didn't really have any of that in place yet. And make sure you have that in place before you embark on anything like this, any system.
Well, I've been close to this project, oftentimes on weekly steering committee calls, to make sure that it's tracking. And I just want to say thank you very much for the partnership. We're not perfect. No company's perfect. And, we did have some challenges along the way. But I really would say that Primient is such a great company to work with. And your partnership was just critical. Communication and partnership. You talk about change management, communication. That goes internal and external, right?
Yes.
So I really appreciate the partnership from you and everybody on your team.
Yep.
It's been great to work with you guys. And with that, I think that's our any closing thoughts here.
Awesome.
I didn't know, by the way, that we were going to be talking about the why so much. I would have brought Simon Sinek books for everybody.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
yep.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here locally in Chicago. We're going to have some lunch. And thank you, everyone who's been on the webinar today. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.